Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? My name is Tony Rosano. You're listening to another episode of the world famous University Love the Best podcast in 1, 2, 3 galaxies. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, we just call the show Online Marketing Moves, and we are coming to you live today. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important episode. Today, we are going to talk about strategy. We're going to talk about strategy a couple times this week. Today we're just gonna discuss backfiring strategy. Say that one time with me, ladies and gentlemen. Backfiring strategy. Okay. The reason why I bring this up is because we all have a plan, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody has a plan. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do for a living, whether you are a nurse, whether you work at Walmart, whether you work at an electronic shop, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, doesn't matter what you do for a living, doesn't matter if you have kids, you don't have kids, we all use strategy. Okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I bring this up because I saw a clip of a group. Now, this group, there's a group online, and they called Earn Your Leisure. Okay. And these are two, I believe it's 2 or 3 people. I think two the most. I think it was three, might be three, but I know they talk about investing and stuff like that, and they're like a financial education company, I would say, or a podcast, I believe. And so they have an event, and it's been going on in Atlanta for a couple of years called Invest Fest. And Invest Fest is the thing where they have people come, and people come talk, and they talk about investing, and whether it be real estate, whether it be in stocks, it doesn't matter. But people come, and it's been in Atlanta for I think 2 or 3 years, I believe. But it was two guys that's from the Earn Your Leisure, and they was on the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is a radio show, for those of you that don't know, a show that is apparently on Netflix nowadays. But I say all that to say they was on the Breakfast Club, and the people on Breakfast Club asked them, is the city of Atlanta doing anything for you? And so they got on there and they said, no, the city of Atlanta is doing nothing for them. They're not getting any kickback. They're not getting any money, any help, any security, any of that. And so maybe they thought that was going to be a good move. Maybe they thought they was going to get the city of Atlanta behind them, but it worked in the opposite direction, because the city of Atlanta, they hissed back at these two fellas, and they hissed back at the Breakfast Club, because the Breakfast Club was like, hey, why are they not helping? And so I'd say all that to say this was a strategy. I don't know if they thought this was a good idea. They thought the city of Atlanta is going to roll out the red carpet, but the mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dixon, he 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 doubled down, and he was like, "Hey," they went on some radio show in New York trying to badmouth the city of Atlanta. We do a lot of we do a lot of activities. We host a lot of events here all the time. And so he was basically saying, what do they need help with? Because most of the people that come to this Invest Fest, they already live in Atlanta. They don't travel, so there's no hotel. They're not making any revenue on the hotel. They're not making any money from the rental car. Delta's not making any money because the majority of the people that come to the Invest Fest already live in Atlanta. So what he was saying was, hey, if you're gonna have some complaints, complain in the city of Atlanta. Don't go to a New York station and complaining. And so more and more people have been making more content. I have a friend, he's been sending me the content, the information, and people are like, hiss, hiss, Invest Fest, hiss. And so this is a strategy that kind of backfired. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, we try things out and they do not work. And I will give you a couple more examples. That is a strategy, because now, the city of Atlanta is not going to embrace them, fellas. I guarantee you that. I mean, they can have the Invest Fest all they want. It's great, and they have it at the Georgia World Congress Center, and that's a very nice place. But I mean, I mean, and also when it comes to investing, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to tell you this. I'm not a preacher. I'm not going to preach to you, but I will tell you this. I will say, do your own research. At the end of the day, you are the one in charge in your investments. You are the one in charge of your accounts. You are the one in charge of your financial literacy. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not rely on people. Do not rely on man, the next person, this person, or the other person. Study and do your own research. Okay, that's that. But anyway, um, I'll give you another example of a strategy that backfired. I remember one time we was watching baseball. My dad's a big Cubs fan. I used to be a big Cubs fan, big Cubs fan. Okay, and this is back in the day. Lou Piniella was the manager. Lou Piniella, great manager, one of the best. He managed the Yankees, the Mariners, the Reds. He won the World Series with the Reds in 1990. Lou Piniella. Lou Piniella's the man. And so he was managing the Cubs, and I remember one year they was playing, I believe they was in the NLDS, that's the National League Division Series, and Lou Piniella decided, I am going to take my number one starter out in the fifth inning because he wanted to save him for game five. Game four, game five. Lou Piniella said, if I can save Big Z until then, we are going to be all right. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cubs got swept. Big Z never got to play game five because there was no game five because the Cubs got swept. And Lou Piniella got pissed off because they was like, Lou, that strategy did not work. And Lou Piniella was like, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, sweet Lou, that strategy did not work. That strategy was terrible. It was god awful. Okay. Um, I will give you a a dating a dating strategy backfire right now. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, me and a friend one time, me and a friend, we was at the mall. We was at Plaza Bonita in San Diego. Okay. This was when I was in the Navy. I had to give this. I had to give this. You have to say this out loud. Long before I met my wife. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Long time ago. Long time ago. Okay. Me and a friend of mine, we were out and about. He met these two young ladies, and he thought these two young ladies really wanted to go out with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna go ahead and break the bad news for you. I'm gonna be up front. They did not want to go out with us. Okay, they was just looking for a free evening to do something. Okay, and so my friend was like, "Oh man, these two girls they want to go out to the movies with us." And I was like, "Steve, what time they want to go to the movies? 7 o'clock?" He said, "No, 9:30." I said, "Steve, these girls do not want to go to the movies with us. They just want somebody to pay for the movie." And so I had a strategy, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. I told Steve, I said, Stevie, I said, this is what we're going to do. You're going to walk up there. You're going to buy you a ticket. She's going to buy her ticket. I'm going to buy my ticket. The other young lady's gonna buy her ticket. We're all gonna buy our own tickets. We ain't paying for their tickets. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we were in the Navy. We were brokies. We had money, but I didn't want to spend $9.50 on a girl that did not. I had no chance in Hades of ever seeing again or being with. Okay, and so this was the strategy. So I let Steve first mistake. I let Steve go up there first. Mistake number one. Steve went up there. He looked back at me. And when he looked back at me, ladies and gentlemen, I knew we was cooked. He said, "Two tickets for Final Destination, please." I think it was Final Destination. And the lady said, "That'll be $19." And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm out of 19 bucks because I can't. I I don't have the heart. You know, I don't got the heart to go be like, nah, sorry, sister. He pays, he's a sugar daddy. I am not. I did not have the heart then, nor do I definitely don't have the heart now. And so I had to go up there and like 2 tickets for Final Destination, please. And then I turned around and said, "Do you want some popcorn?" Because I mean, we're already in it. We might as well go all the way in it. And of course, she said, "Yes, I would like popcorn, please." And I knew, man, from the word go, I had no chance. This young lady, and the movie was over with. They ate their popcorn, they drank their drink, and my boy Steve said, "Where do you think they're going, Roro?" And I said, "Steve, they are going home to have sex with their boyfriends, okay? We are cooked." And they probably did, and that's that. God bless them girls, wherever they at, in the wind. Uh, May somebody tricked them out of $9.50, okay? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But that was strategy. That strategy backfired, okay? Listen, you want your strategy to listen. If everything worked out 100% all the time, we would all be fat and laid in the shade, sipping lemonade. Okay, it don't work that way. We all know sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But the most important thing is to have a plan, have a strategy, have a goal. You know, if it don't work, it don't work. Come back, get a new strategy. Get a new plan. Get a new thought going. Okay. The worst thing you can do, ladies and gentlemen, the worst thing you can do, the worst thing all of us can do, is just go into a situation with guns a blazing, no strategy, no thought, no nothing. You just jump in. Uh, you do want to dive in. It's great you want to take action, but ladies and gentlemen, let's have a strategy. Let's develop one, okay? And this week we're gonna discuss that a little bit more. And we're going to introduce a new segment to the show coming up in the next week or two. I have a friend. He's going to design a product, and we're going to discuss the product on the show. We're going to discuss the idea we're going to discuss the idea of the product. We're going to discuss the making of the product. And ladies and gentlemen, you get to follow step by step on how a guy goes from an idea to the product being made, the product being sold, and eventually him becoming a billionaire. Okay. Well, I don't know about the billionaire part, but we'll just see how it goes. And so we're gonna do a weekly segment. It's gonna be with one of my good friends, and it's either gonna start this week or next week. And I'm still working on the title of said segment. We'll probably introduce that segment on the Friday, every Friday, and it'll give you something to mull over, chew over on the weekend. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We'll be back tomorrow with all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. And if you ever want to read about strategy or learn about, uh, different kind of strategic things that you can do. You can always look around. You can see how things are done. Me myself, I like to read a good book on strategy. As I told you before, one of my favorite books was about Lyndon Johnson, how he got into the Senate, how he became the leader of the Senate. That book. Um, I've started to read a book about. I got halfway done with the book about Napoleon. I got to finish that up. That was a pretty good book, Napoleon. And speaking of backfiring strategies, that's one that I almost missed. Um, Napoleon, ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon got too big for his britches, and he wanted to beat Russia into the ground. And so the Russians decided we're going to fall back. They were on the defense. Now we're going to talk about this in the future as well, but Napoleon had a strategy that backfired. He thought he was going to be on the attack of the Russians. He kept going in and in and in into Russia, and then he didn't. A lot of his soldiers didn't survive the winter. They ran out of supplies by the summer, and then they got closer to the city of Moscow. They got attacked. They lost. It was a big loss for France, a big L for Napoleon. And it was a strategy that backfired because Napoleon got too big for his britches. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you always have to watch. Just because something worked this time, that time, does not mean it's going to keep working. The things that worked in the 70s, sometimes they still work. Sometimes you have to come up with a new idea. But the most important thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we discuss have a strategy. All right. Don't, don't, do not start something and have any kind of strategy, any type of plan, no nothing. Just you're just out here floating. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you for listening today. We'll be back tomorrow with all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, my name is Tony Rosano. Thank you for listening. God bless each and every one of you. And as always, everybody, peace.